Welcome, future masters. Make sure you like this video. It's going to be a great lesson. This is another basic king and pawn endgame lesson. What you see here is white made a mistake and pushed his pawn. But at this point, you have to determine what's the most important thing going on in this game. There's two real objectives. White wants to queen this H pawn, black wants to queen this C pawn. The C pawn constructs a 4x4. You start here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. This makes the square of the pawn. The white king is not in the square, so this pawn can queen. The white pawn on H5 also makes a square, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You see the black king is in the square of this pawn. So this king neutralizes this pawn. This king does not do the same thing here. So the most important thing is this C pawn is ready to score and cannot be stopped. The black king only needs to move if the pawn moves. So the first move is fairly obvious, C3. We've determined the most important thing was the C pawn can queen uncontested. Now white will throw up moves to threaten to queen, and then we have to respond to those moves. H6. Now we have to get back into the square. The square is now 3x3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So we have to play king F6. Again, white is in a quandary. He's basically dead lost. As soon as we played C3, he was dead lost. 2x2 square. Get in the square. 2x2. King G7. Now, his pawn doesn't move, we don't move our king, so all we have to do is move the pawn. It's fairly basic. It is deductive logic at its most fundamental. You see the 2x2 square, he's not close. Queen, we take king takes free queen, as my father would say, and that's game over. He plays king to E2 and queen. So, pretty quick stuff. It's a great lesson because this really reduces the problem to its elemental form. Black only has two pieces, a king and a pawn. You move one or the other every time, and you understand here, as I explained, when the king is neutralizing the pawn, this king does not need to move. So, this king is neutralizing the pawn. This is a rule. I mean, no one calls it that, but I'm going to call it a rule. It's a rule of king and pawn endgames. When your king is neutralizing the enemy pawn threat, you don't move the king, you move the pawn. It can't get any simpler. He threatens the queen, we stop the threat. He threatens the queen, we stop the threat. He threatens to stop us, we proceed further. He queens, we take it, game over. So, like I said, it's a very important lesson. It takes a lot longer than the 23 seconds it took me to cash it in. But it's still a quickie lesson, very important. So look at this yourself and just replay this. Understand the two main things. Neutralize the enemy pawn, number one. Number two, recognize that your pawn is or is not catchable by the other king. Pretty simple. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Check out my other ones. I have many more king and pawn endgames. They're awesome. You need them to get better. And oh, by the way, I'm a master and then some on king and pawn endgames. Talk to you guys later.